All right. Thank you guys so much for joining Passion for Success. Just to give you a little background on that. When I retired, after I had my first child, I saw how hard it was to transition from playing into that next phase of life. So I started a company called Sarah's Platinum Group to help recently retired athletes as they transitioned. And through that, through all my runs, I'd just be thinking about the fact that there's all these amazing women out there and how there's so much to learn from them. And so this is how Passion for Success was created. And so I want to not only inspire all of you by hearing the stories of these amazing women, but building a platform so that we can learn and grow together. So in saying that, I wanted to introduce our very first guest, the one and only Crystal Dunn.
Yay!
Yay! Crystal is a World Cup champion, member of the US Women's National Team, MVP of the NWSL in 2015, and we'll talk a little bit about that year, 2015, for her. But first, I wanted to start with the fact that Crystal, you and I actually, we overlapped.
Yes.
It was your first camp. Ironically, it was my last camp before retiring. And so it's been so much fun to kind of watch your growth over the 7 years that it's been. What do you think the key has been for your success on the U.S. Women's National Team?
Honestly, it was always about just figuring out, my strengths. I think constantly you're always trying to grow as a person and a player, and you realize that you may think you're good, and then you step onto the team full of all these legends. You're like, I have way more growth left in me, So I think for me, it was really just getting my foot in and learning from all these players and learning how to handle stressful situations that I didn't experience beforehand. So, the first couple of years on the national team were really rough for me, but that was to be expected. If it was easy, then I would have, assumed that, the girls weren't as good, but obviously that was totally not true. So, I just really had to learn who I wanted to be as a person and a player in that environment. And it was good that it was tough and hard at the beginning because, like I said, it allowed me to grow and to adapt.
I always love to ask players, what was it like for you as a child? And how did your love for soccer begin?
Yeah, so my parents are actually from Queens, New York. So in the city, they moved out to Long Island to give my brother and I a better, life, a better upbringing. And everywhere in Rockville Center, there were soccer fields, and then there were kids playing and running around. And I had no idea what the sport was, but I told my parents, this looks fun. I wanna give it a whirl. And that's where I really just fell in love with the game. It really allowed me to get rid of all the extra energy that I had as a kid. My parents were probably really happy about that. And it allowed me to express myself. As a young kid, you want to hang out with your friends, you want to, just run and feel free. And I think that's really what soccer gave me at a young age. And, I truly enjoyed it. And I think that's really why I stuck with it all this time, is just the way it made me feel from a very young age is it was incredible.
If you could write a letter to your younger self, what would you say?
A lot of things probably, but I think for starters, I would just say, enjoy the lows just as much as you enjoy the highs. I think when you're young, you go through a difficult time, you feel like the world's coming to an end. I mean, that's totally normal. You get cut from a team or, you have a bad game, you feel like, wow, this is, how am I going to bounce back? But I think, now that I'm a little older, I realize you're going to always have an off training. You're going to have an off game. You're going to have an off moment. But it's really about how you respond to those moments. And I just think as a young kid, you don't realize that, these little issues are just that. They're little issues that you should never let get bigger than they actually are. And just, the next day is a new day, and it's another opportunity for you to get better and to learn and grow.
Such great advice. Playing in college soccer is a really big decision to be made. And I know that kids are so young nowadays. Reflecting back on your decisions to choose UNC, what advice would you give to younger players when they are trying to decide where to go and play college soccer or any sport?
Yeah, I mean, everything is so much faster than it was back in the day. I mean, I decided to go to UNC at 16, 17. And that to me, I already felt like I'm not ready to make a big decision like this. And now I hear kind of girls and boys are making decisions at like, 13, knowing where they want to go. And I was like, how do you know what you want to do? You're so young. But for me, I think you should always choose a program that's going to challenge you. I think I wanted to go to UNC because, Anson, the first thing he said to me was, you're going to have to compete. I can see you being a starter, but it won't be given to you. And I think that was what I was like, this is awesome. Like, I'm so happy you basically said that nothing's given and I have to work to be a starter, because, freshman going in, a senior in high school going into college, you want to be good. You want to have a great first year in college, but it shouldn't be so easy for you to just transition in, and I think you definitely want to go to a program that's going to challenge you in every way possible. But I think as well, you should choose a school that you're going to enjoy all the other things outside of soccer. For me, UNC was not a completely huge school, and that mattered to me. I didn't want to go to a school where I meet somebody and then I may not see them ever again till the end of my time there. So I just think you have to enjoy everything that school has to offer and not just focus so much on, I want to play. Soccer is the only thing that matters, because you spend a lot of time off the soccer field in college. So you really just want to make sure you can enjoy so many great things and all the classes and all the cool courses that you can take. You want to take advantage of that as well.
Yeah, because God forbid you were to have an injury or something like that. You want to end up being at a school that you really want to go to from an academic standpoint also.
Definitely.
Catherine is going to ask a question. How does life of professionals play mimic what you anticipate to be the working world for women, besides the obvious of equal pay, et cetera?
I just think sports is such a great way to, allow you to take on all the pressures that you face, and that carries on as well in the real world. I think I've learned so much from being a soccer player, and it's taught me how to handle real life situations. And I just think in each stage you go through, you should always feel like you're learning something new, and you're not, repeating your mistakes. You're learning and growing and taking that into your work phase. So I think for me, I've learned how to manage a lot, just playing on multiple teams at a young age and traveling a lot caused a lot of stress for me, and balancing, high school and missing out on all the things that I thought in the world were the most important things, missing out on a Sweet 16 party or prom or whatever it is. And I think from a young age, I really learned that you have to prioritize and figure out what matters most to you, and you can't do it all. So you do have to just like learn from a young age to just balance everything that happens in your world.
Crystal, was playing on the U.S. team always a dream of yours? And if it wasn't, when did you kind of believe that it was a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, because I was a late bloomer. I always say that because, I played soccer because it was fun. My parents knew nothing about the sport. They didn't put pressure on me. If I had a bad game, they were just like, nice try, that's okay. They were like the sweetest, most supportive parents ever. And I think that's why I truly enjoyed and had such a great upbringing with the sport, because I just felt stress-free at all times, And, I think it was really when I got to college that I was like, all right, it's now time for me to figure out where this sport is really going to take me. Now I'm in college, this is awesome. But after college, what is my life going to look like? And I think junior year when I was in college, the WPS had folded. So there was no league. I was already thinking I'm going to have to play overseas by the time I get out of college. And I think it was really my junior year, senior year that I was like, I know that I want to keep continuing playing this sport, and I want to get better and better and better. And so I would say, yeah, midway through college is when I was like, I feel like I truly believe in myself, and I know that I can go up another level.
By the way, my parents were the exact same. They're so supportive, and it allowed me to like soccer was fun for me, Mm-hmm. And if anything, I was the one who was really hard on myself. Are you the same way?
Oh, definitely. And I love that. I think, your parents, especially if they never played professional or anything, they shouldn't really be the ones telling you, oh, you should have made that pass. You should have done this. You should have done that. Because that's the last thing you want to hear sitting in a long car ride home with your parents. I mean, those car rides can get pretty grim at times, you know? So I think, like you said, it's so great to have that support from your parents, because you pretty much are your harshest critic. And, you know, your parents should be there to say, you know what, you're going a little too hard on yourself right now. I think you actually had an okay game. Training wasn't that bad. So I think that's really what keeps you in the game longer, just knowing that you truly love the sport, and that's what really drives you.
Yeah, great advice. Another question for you, Crystal, from Catherine. What did you want to be when you were growing up, and has that changed?
What did I want to be? I think I always wanted to be like a dancer, or, you know, I actually really wanted to do ballet at some point. Um, but then I think once I saw the soccer ball for the first time, that went out the window. I was like, nah, this is way more fun, you know, just, you know, the competitiveness, the just being in a team sport, I think is just so awesome. You know, I think just that team camaraderie is something that, you know, I truly, truly admire it about the game of soccer. To be in an individual sport, I don't think, you know, would be great for me at this point, because I'm so hard on myself. It's like, if I lose a game, I'm like, Crystal, it was all on you. That was, you know, it's no one else's fault. And I'm like, gosh, thank goodness I play with other players where, you know, you share the load, you share the pressure, you share, you know, the vision of how you want to play, and you try to execute it. But it doesn't ever fall on one person's shoulders. So I think that's what's really cool about soccer.
You have been lucky enough to play multiple positions throughout your college career in the NWSL and also on the national team. So how does versatility, how is it important, not only on the soccer field, but also off the soccer field?
Oh, well, first of all, I'm so happy you said lucky enough to play multiple positions, because sometimes I don't know if I feel so lucky, but yes, I would say being versatile is a pretty cool thing. I think it gives you so much more perspective on the field, to just be able to say, you know, as a midfielder, I know where I want to be, because when I was playing outside back, I know the pockets of spaces that are going to help my outside back. I know, you know, the movements that I can create for myself and other players, because I've been in those other positions. And I just think, yeah, it's given me so much awareness on the field. It's allowed me to really appreciate multiple positions. I think now the world is catching up and realizing that outside backs do a crazy amount of work, and we provide a lot of the attack. We obviously defensively are, you know, strong and very tenacious, but I think for so long there was this, you know, this stigma of like, okay, if you're forward and you're moving to the back line, it means because you're not good or because you're not technical. But I think I'm so happy the world now has realized that this game has grown, and we need every player on every piece of the field to be able to be technical and tactical and have so much awareness of the game. And so I think it's just really cool. Yeah, being able to be all over the pitch just allows me to appreciate, you know, the game for all that it has to offer.
And I say that because when you go from a World Cup roster, it's 21 now. What, 23?
23, yeah.
They cut it down to 18. So really, if you're not versatile, like that becomes a problem a lot of times. So that versatility really plays in when you're talking about a lesser roster, being able to play multiple positions. And yes, understanding all those different positions helps as well. This is another question from Anne. What position would you want to play if you had your choice?
Oh, if I had my way, that's a great question. So no one plays a traditional 4-4-2 anymore. And I'm convinced that I'm literally just like a wide midfielder. Like, give me some space. I'll serve the forwards. I'll, like, you know, be there to support. But I just think now everything's about the 4-3-3. And it's like the wide players are really the outside backs and the, you know, wide forwards. So, you know, everything comes back in time. I mean, 4-4-2 was probably about 7-8 years ago. I'm just praying that it comes back while I'm still playing soccer, you know? So maybe I'll get my dream and play outside mid again.
Well, you know, what's funny is that UNC was one of the only teams that was playing the 3-5-2 all those years, and they stuck to it no matter what. Now I'm seeing in the SEC, almost every team is trying to play that formation.
Yes. I mean, everything just comes back in time. It just, yeah. So I'm waiting. 4-4-2. Let's go. Let's go.
Fingers crossed. So I heard a really amazing interview the other day, and for people that might not be aware, 2015, you said it was you experienced your low and you also experienced your high. And the low was not making the World Cup roster that year. But the high was the fact that you were able to battle through it and become the MVP, not only the NWSL, but you also met your then boyfriend, now husband. So just talk about how you were able to use failure as your fuel.
Yeah, I mean, it literally was not as simple as waking up one day and saying like, you know what, bummer, I'm gonna like go on and do something really cool with my life now. You know, I think going through something that, you know, creates a lot of doubt in your mind is really hard to kind of dig yourself back. But I think for me, it was just enjoying the game again. You know, I think when you go through something traumatic in your eyes, you feel like, you know, I don't enjoy doing this anymore. You know, this clearly created this heartbreak in me. So why would I, you know, how do I get my passion back? So luckily, obviously missing out on the World Cup meant that, you know, I had a whole season to look forward to, you know? So for me, it was just getting back into my rhythm and having my teammates there. They were so supportive of the situation. You know, I think the last thing that they knew I needed was them all coming up to me every single day at training saying, oh, bummer. But, you know, I think they gave me the right amount of space to kind of wrap my head around things. And then from there, the season started and it was all about Crystal, let's go, get back on it. And, you know, get back to enjoying the game. You know, that's really why, like I said, I started this game because I've enjoyed it and I truly enjoyed the team morale. And for me, it was getting back to the basics, getting back to playing well and doing the things that I know I could do well. And I think it's hard when you hear from a coach that you're not good enough. You know, I think your initial reaction is always gonna be like, my coach, you know, this coach said I'm not good enough, I didn't make the team. So I have so much doubt in my mind now. And once you relieve yourself from that, I think, you know, the sky's the limit. And that's really what I felt in 2015. I felt like I was on top of the world. I was playing some of my best soccer, and, you know, going from being told you're not good enough to, you know, feeling like you're on top of the world. I was like, yeah, I wish every person can go through that, because it is hard. It is so hard to bounce back and feel like you're worthy of being, you know, an elite player. But really it comes down to you listening to your own voice. Your voice is always the most important. And that's what I did. And of course, I met my then boyfriend at the time, who really helped me get through it. He watched all the games with me. And I think it was already hard for me to watch the World Cup knowing that I was like, oh man, I wish I were there. But, you know, he really allowed me to say, you know, it's okay. These are your friends, these are your teammates, you support them. And, you know, just from there, it was like, I had such a great time just resetting and regrouping, and obviously went on to be my husband now. And it's just funny how things work out. So yeah, I hope everyone experiences kind of a year similar to mine, where you just feel like, you know, you're at your lowest, but by the end of the year, you're just like, wow, I forgot that I even went through all that.
Just wanted to say congratulations. That's an amazing story to be able to share that with us and for us to be inspired by that. You know, I think that all successful people have to fail, you know, at some point to really figure it out. And
Definitely.
you were able to show us that. So speaking about going from 2015 to then playing in this last World Cup, obviously, you know, the biggest event in the world when it comes to soccer, all eyes are on the U.S. women's national team. How do you deal with that much attention, you know, from a mental standpoint internally?
Yeah, I would say start by deleting social media. That was the first thing that I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm stepping into the World Cup now. Instagram, Twitter, it's no longer on my phone. Just because it's so easy to listen to the external voices, you know, it's so easy for someone to find a little thing here and just completely run a whole story on it and say, oh, you know, this team isn't going to succeed because of this thing or this thing. And I just feel like, you know, we created a safe bubble. We created, you know, a space for us to say, guys, we got this. We're going to lean on each other. We're the only ones that matter. Anything outside of our group is just noise that we don't need to listen to. So that was, you know, being in the World Cup was very challenging. You want to play at the highest level, and you want to please everybody. You want the next day, you know, an article to be written up saying that, you know, you're the best team. And sometimes it's not like that. They like the media will find anything to say, oh, the U.S. isn't going to succeed. They're not as good as they think they are. And I just think for me, it started with completely getting rid of social media. And that way I can focus on my team and, playing my role to my best ability.
Was every game for you the same from a mentality standpoint? You're playing the host in France. Your husband is from there as well. Did that game have a little bit different meaning for you, or was it pretty much all the same for you? You were focused the same way for every game?
Yeah, I think my preparation for every game was pretty much the same. It's a World Cup. You don't know what a team is going to throw at you. They can all of a sudden play in a 7-back and you're like, whoa, wasn't prepared for this. How do I handle this situation? But my preparation was the same. I always woke up on game day and said, this is going to be one of the hardest games ever, just because the pressure around the whole tournament. I'd be lying if I said there was another game compared to the French game, though. That was, my heart is still pounding. Whenever I have to talk about it, I'm like, okay, all right, let me settle down a little bit, because yes, you're playing the host country. My husband and his family is in the crowds, and he had to tell them very nicely, you can only root for Crystal. You cannot be chanting the French chants. And there was just a lot of pressure on that game. I think, especially for me, I felt like, there was a lot of criticism against me in the back line. And I think that actually brought us closer together. And that actually made our whole back line feel like it's us versus everybody. And I think coming out of that game, we really proved that it's not even about having your perfect game or perfect night. It's really about doing whatever it takes to make sure that you make it to that next round. And I think that's what people don't understand. It's, everyone wants to have, the US play pretty soccer. And I'm like, yes, of course, I want to string 1,000 passes and never give the ball away. And that's like my ideal situation. But these games are so wild that you're like, I need to just do what I need to do to make sure that ball's not in the back of the net. And then that's it, So I think it really came down to us buckling in and relying and supporting each other and getting through that game.
Well, you guys did just that, and you played out of your mind. So what does it feel like being a World Cup champion, and how has your life changed since then?
Yes. I had such a feeling of relief when the whistle blew, just because I thought about the last 4 years. It's funny because when you reach success and you achieve something, you feel like you think mostly about the journey. You don't even think about the little moments leading into when the final whistle blows. You think about all the preparation well before the tournament even began. So I think when the final whistle blew for me, I was like, Crystal, you've come such a long way. Like, you've been fighting for this moment for 4 years, So it was incredible. The whistle blew. I was like, yes, I'm tired. I was like, I don't have to run anymore. This is awesome. And of course, just being a world champion is an incredible achievement. It's just, it's life-changing. It makes you feel like you're a completely different person. But with that being said, I do feel like I've always chased the next dream. It's always hard for me to just say, okay, I'm good. I don't need to think about anything for the next couple of years. But for me, I'm like, we're going to have the Olympics the next year. So I couldn't even think about, great, guys, like, we're set, we've done well, the team's in a good way. It was all about what's next. So for me, I don't ever rest on laurels. I think I'm always chasing the next dream, always trying to reinvent myself every year. So as much as I do feel like I've changed a bit since the World Cup, I'm still Crystal Dunn. That's quirky, and I come into the locker room dancing a lot. So nothing's changed. That's never going to change.
Crystal, if you could go back and do anything differently, what would it be?
I think at a young age, I never really trained a lot on my own. And I think that only started when I got to college, when, our coaching staff was basically like breeding competitiveness. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to work on my game. I'm going to serve better balls in and spend some time outside of training doing that. But I think when I was a kid, I just enjoyed being out there with my teammates. And then once training was over, I was like, all right, I'm good. See you guys when I see you. But I think now the new age of players coming up are so into training on their own. And I'm like, dang it, I should have done that. I mean, I could have been Carly Lloyd if I would have done that.
I always feel the same way when I used to train with Carly also. So I get it. I wish I would have started training with James earlier.
Yes, exactly. I'm like, where was James when I was like 10 years old? Goodness.
So one of the things that I regret the most, and I will tell you this right now, that I didn't do was when I was playing was use my platform on social media really for good. You know, I was always very PC. I didn't really ever voice my opinion. I didn't ever stand for, you know, charities and things like that. And so I definitely, that's one regret I had. And I think right now more than anything, I always love when people use their platform for good. And obviously I've been able to see you recently to speak out. And I just want to know, like, what can we all do as allies and as fans to support you and obviously the Black community even more so?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great question. And I'm one happy you said that because I also haven't been someone that's like been so vocal my whole career. I think I've had to like grow into finding my voice just because, you know, when you're an athlete, you want to keep the peace. You don't want to be political. You don't want to upset anyone. And I think it's normal and natural to do that. And I just think now I'm actually really happy that the world is kind of encouraging everyone to use their voice, you know. And I think what's going on in the world right now is not just a Black person thing. I think it's really great that, you know, my teammates now are coming up to me and asking me questions and wanting to have conversations. And I think that's exactly what I would have loved to happen this whole time. You know, I hope we don't have to wait for a tragedy to happen for us all as a community to get together and say, okay, like we need change now, you know? So, yeah, now I feel like I'm finding my voice, and I've had help doing it just because my teammates on the national team have always been vocal and have always fought for what they believe in. And now I'm like, all right, great. Like they're teaching me that you have to stand for something, you know? And I think what's going on now is like I tried to change my little environment, and I'm happy you asked me how I feel and how we can change things. And I think just as Black athletes, what I spoke about was just the feeling that we're just bodies and we're not minds, you know. And I think especially I would encourage anyone who's coaching young Black kids to just continue encouraging them to work on their cognitive decisions on the field, and not just, you know, working on all the qualities that they may naturally possess, which is like speed and their strength. And, you know, not to say that they can't be that. Of course, our sport is super competitive and you need to be all those things. But I think for a long time, society kind of sells Black athletes and Black people short, and they just feel like we are just machines, you know, and we just run, we don't think, we just, you know, compete on the field and that's it. And I think if I can just help change that narrative and those stereotypes, like I think we'll just be better off and we can help fight for change together.
Well, we all look forward to it. You know, I know that there won't be fans this weekend at the upcoming tournament, but what are you looking forward to the most?
Oh, I am excited, guys. I mean, sports is definitely weird now. There are not going to be any fans, which is sad, but I do think I'm excited just to progress into what a new normal for right now is going to be. You know, I think um COVID is obviously alive and well, and it's a very scary thing, but I'm very happy that the league provided us with safe protocols that we all have been following, because realistically, we're all at the mercy of everybody. It's not just my team following the protocols, it's all other teams doing the same thing. So I'm very excited to return back and compete. I'm so sick of chasing my teammates around all day. So I think I'm excited to not have scrimmages anymore, but to actually compete and play against other teams.
Yeah, we can't wait to watch you. It's going to be on CBS. And obviously, you guys are defending champs, so a lot will be riding on this tournament and seeing you guys play again. It's the first action for any sports team, so that's very exciting for you guys. I had a question from Haley. U.S. Soccer and the NWSL has resources for players such as coaches courses, but are there other skills, business or otherwise, that you'd like to see players have access to while they're still playing? Great question, Haley.
That is really great. I would say, yeah, there's a whole lot. I think, honestly, Heather, what you started is something that I think US soccer could implement as well, is like helping players kind of transition out of the sport. And most of the time, it's kind of too late. We kind of like ended up retiring, and then you have to kind of like play catch up. And it would be really great to have kind of something set up where you can still be playing, but also kind of have your foot in the door of what's next. So I definitely would like to incorporate that, and I think a lot of people would totally benefit from it.
Thank you so much for joining us. We don't have any more questions today. Crystal, wanted to wish you the best of luck, not only in this tournament this weekend, but moving forward. Can't wait to see you play in the Olympics and all future games. We think you're a real inspiration, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm glad you guys wanted to listen to me chat because I can chat forever. So thank you.